Throughout the 70s and 80s, ADS built some of the most incredible speakers ever made. While the brand wasn't necessarily a secret, how good these speakers were was. This is the bizarre story of ADS that involves a German physicist working for NASA in the United States and a famous German company known for electric razors and toothbrushes. Sounds like the same story from how every speaker manufacturer got started, right? But before we get into the origins of ADS and what makes these speakers so unique, I just spent the last couple days listening to every pair of ADS speakers I own, from small two-way bookshelf speakers to massive monsters. And I think I've figured out where the ADS sweet spot is, and I'll go over all of that here in a bit, but first we need to start at the beginning. And the ADS story begins with a German physicist named Dr. Gotthard Günther working at NASA on their space program. This guy was amazing. In 1969, Dr. Günther migrated to the United States to work for NASA on their ambitious Skylab's program, America's first space station. However, as an accomplished pianist and an audiophile himself, he was really disappointed with what the United States was offering as far as hi-fi equipment. So much so that as a side hustle to his full-time job at NASA, he decided to start importing hi-fi products from the company Braun. And like me, you might be thinking, you mean like Braun with the big A, the one that sells toothbrushes and razors? That's it. They also sold incredible hi-fi components overseas. And Dr. Günther's side hustle quickly turned into him being the sole distributor for Braun Electronics' Braun hi-fi components in the United States. But with the high cost of importing these large furniture-grade speakers into the United States, and Dr. Günther, obviously being a smart guy, a physicist for NASA, figured out that maybe I should just import the Braun drivers. I can make my own cabinets, maybe improve on them a little bit. I'm going to give it a go. And after playing his own creations, his own speaker designs for his friends, they were blown away. They wanted a set. They asked the doctor if he could make them a set. So in 1972, Dr. Günther decided, I'm going to leave NASA. I'm going to bring my speakers to market. And he started the brand ADS, Analog Digital Systems, with a big D, a little nod to Braun. He spent the next couple of years selling his speakers local, tweaking his speaker designs, getting his lineup ready, because with the success of the local sales, he was now getting ready to go national. Then in 1975, ADS started making their own version of the Braun drivers, made in America. And at this point, ADS has their original lineup, some of the most iconic speakers ADS ever sold, ready to go. You've got the L400, 500, 710, 810. And success continued throughout the 80s and 90s for ADS. Some really well-regarded speakers came from this era, like the 1290s, the 1590s, and the massive holy grail of ADS, the 2030s. And then in 1993, Dr. Günther retired. The company ended up changing hands and their focus several times, merging with a Canadian company and then later being sold to DEI, whose focus was really on car stereos and alarm systems. Far cry from where it all started. And it just marked an end of the ADS brand as we know it. And before we talk about my day with ADS, me doing my ADS shootout, let's take a look at what made ADS speakers so unique, how they got their title, Invisible Sound, and how they got their reputation for neutrality, clarity, and non-fatiguing high-frequency detail. That is something that ADS does extremely well. One thing you'll find in common with most ADS speakers, actually I don't know of a set that is ported, ADS used acoustic suspension designs, a lot like Acoustic Research and KLH back in the day, while the West Coast brands were leaning heavy into ported, brands like JBL, Cerwin-Vega. Acoustic suspension speakers are usually a little bit harder to drive, usually get tighter bass response. And I don't have a preference to either ported or acoustic suspension, but there's nothing worse than some blubbery, uncontrolled bass. And a really good acoustic suspension design does a good job of making sure that's not an issue. Another thing you'll find almost across the entire line of ADS, they use soft dome tweeters and soft dome mid-range drivers. A lot of manufacturers in the 70s were still using cone mid-range drivers and cone tweeters. And those soft domes, even though they're kind of a pain in the ass with that sticky film on the outside, they're not pet friendly. You don't want dog or cat hair near these things. These are a leave the grill cloths on speaker. And again, I don't think there's a right or wrong here. I've heard really good cone tweeters, cone mid-range, but that is one thing I do like about ADS is I believe that soft dome mid and that soft dome tweeter does a really good job with dispersion. And I do think it has something to do with why these speakers are so non-fatiguing. It's the opposite of a horn for me. And then another unique attribute to ADS, several models had metal grills. These were perforated, thin metal grills. This is a feature that gets discussed quite a bit. A lot of the measurement people will swear that this is a bad idea. And I have several sets of cloth and metal grill ADS speakers, which I have listened to with the metal grill on and without. And personally, I don't hear anything. I don't hear a difference. If you do, I believe you. I don't. And then the cabinet designs and finish from ADS products, especially the higher up you go in the line, I think are incredible. The veneer work, the finish, the little rounded inlay they used on some of their models that gave them kind of a rounded edge. You can just tell the cabinet and the design was not an afterthought for ADS. And with almost every brand of speaker, especially back in the day, just putting out square boxes, it might seem trivial to some, but those finishing touches that ADS did that differentiate them from every other square box speaker out there, it adds to it a little bit. It adds to it for me. I like the look. If you're a wood person, you'll pick up on it instantly. You put all those things together, the quality drivers, the unique designs and finish. You've got a doctor of physics making sure that speaker sounds as good as it possibly can. And you've got something special. You've got ADS. I've got my notes from listening to my ADS speakers over the last couple days. I listened to 6 different pair. And because I know the 810s so well, I compare a lot of new speakers to the 810s. It's kind of my benchmark. I decided to just A/B my other ADS speakers against my A10s. And the ADS speakers I listened to were the L420s, the L500s, the L630s, the 910s, and the 1230s. And I came away with a couple interesting things here. 2 of the speakers I had never heard before. That would be the 420s and the 630s. I've grabbed both these sets of speakers here recently. The 420s, when I got them, they had a really bad cone job on them, so I sent them to Richard So. If anybody needs information on ADS or needs repair work done, he is the guru of ADS. He does incredible work. Get your ADS speakers to Richard now while he still has parts and he's still doing this work. Link in the description. The other pair I'd never heard was the L630s. These just came in recently and I think they're on the rare side. They actually have a sticker on the back that says City of Dallas Center. So I think they went to a community auction or a community garage sale or something. Really strange. I'm leaving the sticker on it. And then the 910s, even though I had heard them, we did a video on them not too long ago. Tony just got done rebuilding the crossover network completely. I wasn't a fan of them before. And a lot of people reached out saying, well, you got to rebuild the crossovers. So we did. We rebuilt them. And I was excited to get to hear them again with the new crossovers. And I'll be honest with you, they still didn't do it for me. They're good. Every speaker on this list is amazing. I'd be happy with any one of them, but some are just better than others to me. And the L810s are still my favorite. That might be my forever speaker. That might be the speaker that I judge every speaker against, new or old. After comparing all my ADS speakers, I will say the 1230s are the closest to the 810 that I have. They're right there. I don't think the bass is as tight, as controlled as it is with the 810s. I thought the mid-range and the treble was right there. It still gave me that feeling like I am listening to a really balanced set of speakers. And that's the reaction I have every time I hear my 810s. I'm always just shocked at how balanced those 810s are. And those 1230s are really close. I don't have a pair of 1290s. I've never heard a pair of 2030s. And I've never owned a pair of 710s. But the other speaker that I listened to that I thought really came close were the 630s. They were close. The 420s weren't bad. I think in a smaller room, they'd be perfect. They'd be all I would need. But I do think there's better in that size category, especially from newer manufacturers. That's just me being honest. I really walked away from A-Bing these speakers thinking, I think I might have just got the best of the best on the first go, because the 810s were the first ADS speakers I'd ever heard and the first pair I'd ever owned. And I think I just got lucky. Rather than having my hopes on getting a pair of 2030s someday, I did come away with this thinking the 710s are probably going to be what I'm looking for if I wanted another set of ADS. I think those mid to large size ADS, the 3-ways, the bookshelf speakers, for me is where it's at. If you love your 910s, I totally get it. If I wasn't setting them next to my favorite speaker ever, I'd think they were absolutely incredible. I just think the 810s are a little bit better. The 1230s are right there too. But if I had the choice, I'd take the 810s. I still need to hear a pair of 1290s because the online forums, the online community praise that speaker so much. And if anything, the only inhibition I have with the 1290s, I hate to say this, but I don't like the look of them. If I'm going to sit in my chair and I'm going to stare at speakers or stare at a wall, it's important to me. Now, if I heard a pair of 1290s and they totally just crushed the 810s, I'd get over it. But that's something I'll worry about then. For now, the 810s for me are where it's at. It is shocking how good this speaker that's 40, 50 years old is. That's the secret of ADS. It's not that the brand was unknown. I was aware of the brand growing up. I knew the logo. I remember seeing the pictures in the magazines, but I never heard them. And I hear that quite a bit here in the shop. People that have just picked up a set of ADS and they'll say, I had no idea. I'd never heard of them. They're incredible. How did I not know about them? And I really just think it comes down to, I wasn't in the hi-fi market in the 70s and 80s. I'm just a little bit too young for that. I wasn't making enough money to even consider a pair of ADS speakers or anything in that price range. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are in that same position. But now that we have the internet, we have YouTube, we have Facebook groups, the word has gotten out that you need to check out a pair of ADS speakers if you're into vintage stereo equipment. If you don't want vintage, don't worry about it. There's plenty of really good speakers out there being made. But if you like the history and the nostalgia from the 70s, the 80s, do yourself a favor and get yourself a pair of ADS speakers. I'm still amazed that somebody hasn't bought that brand name and started manufacturing some of these old classic models again. You've got JBL putting out L100s. Leak is putting out their Sandwich 250s. Wharfdale is selling a ton of throwback speakers that sound incredible. Mission, somebody that's going to do it right, needs to buy the ADS name and start manufacturing these speakers. I'd be all over it. And if you enjoyed this video, you should definitely watch this one where I put my 810s up against the new Wharfdale Lintons. It was fun. That was a good time.